Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another show of What's Coming Down the 5E Pike. As always, I am your host, Chris Doyle, Director of 5E Development and Design for Goodman Games. And over the next hour or so, we're going to talk about a bunch of different interesting things that are going on here. First of all, a spoiler alert, you'll notice I'm rocking a really cool Quasquiton t-shirt. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but that's a big theme of our show here tonight. I want to welcome everybody to the show again. It's great to see everybody in virtual land once again. We are going to start out with an update on some projects that are currently in the works that you guys all are well aware about, kind of give you some status updates and whatnot, and we're going to show you lots of art. There's going to be lots of pictures and lots of show and tell this time around and everything. After we get to that, we're going to talk about a couple of other projects that are going to be going to crowdfunding later on this year. Some of which you probably know about, some of which shouldn't be a terrible surprise, but we are just starting to talk about them, so you're probably going to get some interesting info here and there. And then after we get through all of that stuff, then the best part of the show, we got a special guest, Tim Wadzinski, and for 5E Goodman Games fans, Tim is a longtime name that you're probably very familiar with. We are going to talk about Tim's trip to the town of Quasqueton. I can't even say it. It's a complicated one. And also, we're going to go over GaryCon that was a couple of weeks ago, and talk about Goodman Games at GaryCon and everything. So it ought to be a pretty awesome show. So let's kind of get right to it. So. Update number one is Dungeon Denizens. First of all, thank you to all the backers. For those of you who are not aware, Dungeon Denizens was our second highest dollar amount for a Kickstarter for Goodman Games, which is amazing. But what was even more amazing is we blew away our record on the number of backers for a Kickstarter by almost 800. We had 4,274 backers, which is amazing. And we are currently part of that crowdfunding effort was the actual backers could send in a designed monster for either DCC or 5E for possible inclusion into the book. And we had 20 slots of those available. So just wanted to warn everybody that the submission deadline for that is this Sunday at midnight, April 16th. So if folks need more information, I would direct you to update number 29 on the Kickstarter page. It kind of guns down everything. We're already starting to get the submissions kind of flowing in. We anticipate getting a couple of hundred, probably several hundred. I mean, if you think about it, we have over 4,000 backers. So, even if only 10% of the people submit a monster, that's over 400 monsters we have to go through. So we're looking forward to it. We have teams waiting by. I feel like it's a telethon. We have like people waiting for monsters to come in so that they can start reviewing them and go over them and start vetting them out for possible publication. So that's cool. All right, yes, we got some people working on it with sending in my submission tomorrow. That's great. Good evening, everybody. So that's we're at Dungeons and as far as the rest of the progress of the book, obviously that's going to be a pretty big hurdle once we kind of get those 20 monsters sorted out. Is going to be the next big task that Mike on the DCC side and myself on the 5E side will handle. And then obviously we're still got lots of artwork coming in. Probably 2 or 3 times a week, I get a nice pile of artwork. Well, it's not really a pile. It's a folder. It's a Dropbox folder. But I get to go in and I get to approve, and I get to see some of these sketches kind of coming live. Probably next show I'll have some new stuff to share. Actually, hopefully it'd be great to be able to share maybe some of the backer designed monsters maybe in the next show. So that would be really kind of cool. All right, so moving on, I want to talk about ore number 7, Dark Tower. So this one, very exciting. So our promised delivery date is June of this year, so that's coming up soon. Not quite sure we're going to make that. We're probably going to be a couple of months delayed. We are in layout right now as we speak. Our graphic artist is putting all the files together and actually laying the books out. Just about all of the artwork in it is in. There's probably a couple straggler pieces of artwork. Still waiting here or there. So, but we are moving along very nicely. Basically, Dark Tower is now going to be our focus of our attention, probably for the next month or so. We're really hopeful that we're going to turn this around. We've kind of set our schedules up now that we're kind of focusing on these projects as they move down the line here as they get to us. So Dark Tower is next one. So expect some really cool layout pages probably to be posted on the campaign page very soon. And then as soon as we get that PDF put together, we'll start sharing the PDFs out there so folks can start looking things over. If folks even want to start playing with the PDFs, they probably could. And I will remind everybody that 20 Sides to Every Story is doing Dark Tower. They started it, I think it was I'm gonna say it was like last October or so, something like that. And they are they're like probably 15 sessions in at this point or so. So if you're interested to kind of get a sneak peek of what it's all about, feel free to go check them out, because they always do amazing live playthroughs on their Twitch channel. So I want to share a bunch of artwork for Dark Tower. None of this is new artwork, sadly. Some of this stuff has been posted on the website, but it was posted literally months ago. Actually, I think it was posted last year. So I want to just show off a bunch of images, just kind of get people excited about Dark Tower. So Elena, if you could pop up the first Dark Tower interior picture. So this is great. So one of the cool things we got to do is we got to actually create weapons statistics for some new weapons. So we've got the sap or the blackjack there. We've got the hoopish sword or the hopish. We have the mace axe, which is really cool. And then in the end, we've got the weighted net there. The mace axe is really awesome. It's an actual Egyptian weapon. Basically, yeah, it's a mace and it's an axe. It does bludgeoning and it does slashing damage, which is really, really cool. I'm going to pop up the next picture, number 2, the Mitriatic artifacts. This is, so Mitra is a very big part of Dark Tower. And Mitra's followers have these 3 artifacts, and it's really kind of neat. There's a belt, the girding, there's the favor, which is a ring, and then there's the eye, which is the amulet. And these are all sentient artifacts. Actually, a line of Mitra is actually bound to each one of these, so you kind of get your own kind of NPC kind of comes along with it. And the awesome thing about this is as you get more of these artifacts and combine them, and the same person wields them, they actually get more powerful. So really, really kind of cool. So I had a lot of fun designing those guys. If you want to pop up image number 3, this is the Bazaar of Quasqueton. An awesome thing, some of the additional material that we got to do for this book is we got to actually flesh out the region that the Dark Tower is in, because we can have, as you're going to see later on, we're going to actually have additional adventures set in the quote-unquote Dark Tower region. So the Bazaar of Quasqueton is one of those places. It's actually kind of a kingdom kind of nearby. It's in the Lost Lands, but it's not really in the deserts and everything. But their whole society is based on this bazaar that happens once a year, and it's really cool. We have an adventure that we're actually putting together that's actually based off of it, which is really cool. So excited about that. Yes, and we can see the excited, yeah, what is that thing in the cage? I don't know. That's the awesome thing about artists. We don't know what the thing is, the cage, but it's really cool, and it's nomming on that guy's finger, which is great. Yes, and Jason in progress. We are so excited for Dark Tower as well. Next one, if you can pop up image number 4, we have, this is the Vault of Set. So in addition to Dark Tower, there was a really cool regional map of the Red Moon Pass. And then there was a couple of little notes scrawled here and there about like some interesting places, but they weren't really fleshed out. So we went in and we fleshed them out. And then we added a few more because, we just have fun doing this kind of stuff. And the Vault of Set is one of those, you can kind of figure it out. It's an evil, basically, place of worship kind of hidden in the mountains. And as you can see, there's some guardians guarding a sealed door. And if you happen to be a worshiper of Set, some good things happen to you if you can figure out how to open up that door. So awesome. So our next picture, if you want to pull that one up, number 5. Another bonus adventure that we provided for this adventure is Secrets of the Sphinx, which is a fully designed adventure that kind of sits right in. It's literally you're exploring the interior of a stone sphinx. It's got some real world inspirations there. And one of these encounters, this is actually a ghost. I like this. If you look closely at this guy's knees, you can actually see the chair kind of peeking through his knees there. That's because he's a ghost. and he's bound in this room, and he's forced to play Senate because he lost the game of Senate to the Sphinx Queen herself, so she cursed him. And basically, if you want to get information out of him, and he's got a lot of information, you have to actually beat him in a game of Senate, which is actually really good. It's excellent foreshadowing because later on in the adventure, the players as themselves actually play in a giant game of Senate. So it's actually a really nice primer to actually get them to understand the rules before they actually have to, as their characters being the pawns, actually do it. So next one, if you want to call up number 6, I'm really excited about this piece because I believe this is an artist that we have not used before. And that just excites me because look at the quality of this piece of artwork. I love this. Is a statue of Set. If you know anything about Dark Tower, you know that Janelle was very fond of statues, and statues are not to be trusted. So we had to have a really nice huge piece of a gorgeous picture of a statue of Set. So very excited about that. And that's from the main adventure, Dark Tower. If you want to call up the next one, number 7. This is a very interesting encounter actually in the adventure where there's this pentagram, and as you like step across it and interact with it, like it keeps summoning more skeletons, and you can kind of see the skeletons kind of popping up there and everything. It's really, I mean, I think something like 35 skeletons can be summoned or something, and they can basically overrun you. So one of those classic old school encounters that are just like kind of weird but cool at the same time also. So really excited about that one, and I thought the artist actually caught that image just absolutely perfectly. We'll pull the next one up. We've got the Shadoo interaction. So the Shadoo actually does not occur in either 5e or DCC. So we actually got to, it was a classic 1e adventure monster. So we actually got to create the stats for these guys, and they're generally good guys and everything, and they're actually in parts of the Dark Tower, so they're to help you. So as you can see, you've got a party of adventurers that are actually interacting with them and trying to get some information or possibly some help against the forces of Set right there. So we have that. We'll call up image number 9 next. And this image is a kind of a standard line of Mitra. So Mitra has these paladins that are basically holy warriors that worship Mitra, and this is one of them. And a lot of them are actually the official lions of Mitra are they're actually kind of celestials. They're immortal. So we had to actually kind of provide a nice piece of artwork for them. So really cool, and they all have interesting backstories and personalities. So some of them have actually gone bad, they've gone rogue, but for the most part they're all good and they're going to help you out. So love that. I see the history professor is here. Welcome everybody. All right, the next one, if we could pop that out. This is a great set piece of artwork. This is the final battle with the Lich and the chosen son of Set. I love the perspective of this piece, kind of like, you know, the viewers kind of on the ground, probably already got knocked down probably by the big chosen son of Set, and just kind of like looking up, and it's just like I love the distorted perspective of this and everything. It just kind of really gives you really meaning, and that is a Lich. This is definitely TPK possibility here, a Lich and a chosen son and some badass skeletal warriors. It's the way we used to roll back in the old times. There was no such thing as game balance and everything. So all right, so the next collection of interior art pieces, these are actually from the Sons of Set adventures that are the 3rd book of the 3-book set. So if you can pull up number 11, this is from Pocket in a Shroud. So this, I just kind of call this Cavern of the Undead. So there is a lot of, obviously, since we're in a desert kind of setting here, and we're, you know, mostly going against the forces of Set and everything, lots of undead in these adventures. Obviously, golems, undead, very common. This is a great one. I believe Brad did the artwork for this. Love it. This one will definitely freak your players out. Pull up number 12. So this is from the Cursed. Ooh, wow! I'm trying to think of the Cursed Coils of Set, I believe is what it is called. And this was a great adventure. One of the amazing things about this that we were able to do was this: we did the Sons of Set trilogy. The designers were able to create their own chosen Son of Set, but also lesser Sons of Set. This is actually one of the lesser Sons of Set named Grodd. And this guy actually lives in a hole. This is an urban adventure, but there's basically a hole, and there used to be a building and it collapsed in, and this is the lair of this guy and everything. So you got to go down and actually battle him down there. And again, each of the Sons of Set are completely unique. And there's a host of tables in the original book that you use to actually determine what their abilities are and everything. So your characters will have no idea what they're facing every time they run against one. The next two pieces in my last two interior pieces are from the Heart Shards of Quasqueton. This is the Guardian's Attack. So this is a cursed limestone golem, used to be an adventurer, and a cursed, kind of like a shambling mound creature, but they're both very, very unique. And they are basically guarding an entrance to a tomb here, and it's just like a nasty bat. So there are two like really powerful NPCs, so kind of neat to see that perspective there. And that was done by Cliff Karofsky, which is amazing artwork. And then the last interior piece that I have to share with you, also from Heart Shards of Quasqueton, and this is awesome. Yeah, an undead, a necrotic Cyclops. It doesn't get any better than that. Cyclops is kind of a classic, kind of a Greek monster, but it just kind of fits, in my opinion. I mean, you take anything and you just put a little spin on it, and it's like, probably run into a Cyclops before, but it's like, but probably haven't run into an undead Cyclops before, which is amazing. So love it. So definitely was really excited about that. So that's a sneak peek of the interior art of Dark Tower. I want to share with you just a couple of pieces of the token art. So as if you're aware, we are allowed to do for Dark Tower or number 7, we're allowed to do VTT support. So we are having all of the unique NPCs and some of the more unique monsters. We're actually creating full color token art that we use both for the book, but then also as tokens. And then of course we'll have all the maps and everything as well. So I'll show you some tokens. So if you want to pull up token art number 1, which is the carnivorous ape. So fans of old school first edition ADD remember carnivorous apes. There were apes in 5th edition, and I think they are apes. I think they might actually be white apes in DCC, but there was a fair amount of carnivorous apes in Dark Tower, so we had to create a really cool looking token for that. You can pop up number 2. This is a dervish paladin. There are a fair amount of dervishes in this. There's actually a whole caravan of dervishes that you meet when you first get to the cursed city of Mitra's Fist, and I believe this is the leader of them, or it's just a generic one. I think it's the leader actually. And of course they get kidnapped like right the very first night that you're there, and you might run into them like later on deeper down into the dungeon, which is kind of cool. Pop up number 3, Valshala. Valshala is a female cleric NPC. She's actually part of that caravan that gets kidnapped. So you have a chance to interact with her like the night before in the inn, and then you'll probably find her later on in the dungeon a couple levels down as a prisoner. So we've got her token there. The next one, which is number 4, is Berkham, excuse me. And this is an evil wizard. So there are so many NPCs in Dark Tower. And this is an evil wizard. I believe he's on level 2, and he's got an imp familiar, which is kind of cool. I believe he also has a dagger of venom. He's got some kind of special dagger, exactly what it is. But so you can see the artist kind of captured both of those things right there. So pretty excited about that. Now, that is a wicked looking dagger. This next piece is a great example of what we can do with the different Sons of Set. So if you want to pull up, oh wait, that's all right, we'll jump ahead. That's number 6. That's okay. You stick with that. That's the Lich. That's the big bad Lich we saw earlier. That's his token. So he's good. So no problem. We'll just on the fly here. So okay. So if you want to pull up number 5, the Lesser Son of Set. So I built up the anticipation for that one. Yeah, Liches get stitches. I like that. Check this out, guys. So now take a close look at this guy. So it's got this huge like lizard, like dinosaur body. It kind of has a humanoid torso with 2 hands and everything. And then it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snake heads. I had to count to make sure. But if you look really closely, each snake is a completely different species, which is really cool. And if I recall correctly, the snakes all have like a different type of bite attack. So that is really cool. And I'm just so pleased that the artist caught that out like just perfectly. So love it. All right, so we're gonna jump ahead to number 7 now. Actually, this is the crawling king snake. So imagine a snake, but the size of a purple worm. And actually, when the author actually wrote this, he kind of said it's a purple worm with a couple of tweaks, but his tweaks were, in my opinion, fairly extensive. And I said, let's just create a whole new monster for this because I thought it was legitimate. I thought there was enough there that we could do that. So there's the crawling king snake. So imagine that, but it's like, 50 feet long. So pretty awesome. And if we could pull up number 8. And this is this is also from Pocket and a Shroud, one of those Sons of Set adventure. This is the Shah monster, which I believe is based off of Egyptian mythology, if I'm not mistaken. But totally cool. He's got like a club-like tail, wicked teeth, pretty nasty. So guardian of one of the temples. So kind of neat. And I've got one more token art to share with everybody today. And this is also from Pocket and a Shroud, which is one of the Sons of Set. This is I see if I get this name right, Chisisi, called Sissy for short. So she is the spiritual leader of the town of Thinis, a very small town out in the desert wilderness that you your characters end up in. And but she's actually a secret follower of Set. And so there's another encounter. You run into her kind of in the town, and and then the next thing you know, when you're at the dungeon, there she is in all of her glory. So all right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that little tour of all the artwork for Dark Tower. Again, this is going to be an amazing product. We are so excited. It's it's going to look great on your bookshelf. It's going to be great at the game table, and hopefully it's going to be awesome on a VTT table as well. So looking forward to it. So all right, so the next thing I want to talk a little bit about some upcoming products that we're working on right now. So if you recall, earlier this year, we did an Indiegogo campaign for the Adventure Module Manuals, Volume 1 and 2. And these were reprints of the old, the mostly out of print 5th edition fantasy adventures. We have numbers 1 through 7 in Volume 1, and then 8 through 15 in Volume 2. Well, we will be in a few months rolling out another, I think, Indiegogo campaign, but one of the crowdfunding platforms. Don't worry if you follow us on the website or anything, we'll make sure you find out where it's at. And we were going to be doing another one for the Adventure Module Manuals Volume 3 and Volume 4. And the interesting thing about that is Volume 3 will be reprints of existing 5th edition adventures. 5th edition fantasy adventures, but Volume 4 will be almost all brand new ones that have not been published yet. So those are both going to be hardcover books, and those are going to be out, like I said, crowdfunding later this year. All of the original adventures are already written, and they're basically ready to go into layout. So that will be a pretty quick campaign once that happens, and that'll roll out kind of a couple months later. And if I recall, Adventure Module Manual Volume 1 and Volume 2 are in layout right now as we speak. So those will probably be coming across my desk to proof shortly here, and then we'll be getting those out to backers. And probably once we get those out to backers, then we'll probably be launching that next campaign. And then the next one, which again, we mentioned this during the Dark Tower Kickstarter last year, but not too sure too many people either remember it or are aware of it. So we're going to start building up the hype for this next one. So or number 8 is going to be coming to Kickstarter a little bit later this year, and that is Caverns of Thracia, another one of Janelle Jacquet's. And actually, if you can pull up the cover art to that, there we go. So this is another mega adventure. This is kind of a Greek-inspired one. As you can see the Minotaur on the front there, and it's kind of an overgrown city. The city of Thracia is basically, it's in a jungle, and it's kind of overgrown, kind of like the Mayan ruins down in South America. And then there's levels, and there's dungeon levels down below and everything. So So again, it's just it's typical Jacquet's design, where there's several different ways in and out. This is geared more toward lower levels, so this is like a great one to kick off a starting campaign. And again, we're having a lot of fun with this. So this is going to be the full ore treatment. It will not be a huge 3-book collection like Dark Tower was. We kind of went a little crazy with Dark Tower, we admit that. This will probably be 1 book. It's probably going to be sized about the size of like ore number 1 or ore number 4, probably about 350, 400 pages, something in that general area. There will be a DCC version of it. There will be a 5e version of it. Bob Brinkman is doing the conversion of the DCC rule set, and Scott Moore is doing the conversion of the 5e set. So it's both in great hands. Actually, most of the files are already been turned in. They're already through editing, and we are getting ready to start commissioning the artwork for those, which is a process that will take many, many months, but we will have something to obviously share with everybody once we actually launch it on Kickstarter later this year. And in typical ore fashion, there will be essays from luminaries from the industry that are familiar with the adventures. There will be an original reprint of the 1 edition, first edition. Actually, I think it was original D&D actually, of the module. There will be a full conversion of all the dungeon levels. I believe it's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 3A, and level 4. And then the awesome part, the new material that we get to add. So of course we're going to have some fun. In the original, there was just a couple of locations on the surface in the city that were detailed. We have expanded that greatly. We've actually mapped out more fully the ruins. We've left plenty of areas for the game master to kind of flesh out on their own, but we've kind of seeded those with some adventure ideas and some layers up there. We've detailed the entire island of Thracia, kind of like a regional gazetteer. We've also detailed the archipelago of Thracia, which is a greater regional map, if you will, of the whole area, and all the little islands have different little adventure seeds and notes and everything, so you can drop little dungeons and everything. And I do believe there's portals so that you can go to visit some of those islands and everything. We are adding a whole new level 2A, sandwiching it right between level 2 and level 3. There was a very natural place where we could add that additional material, so we've designed that. And there's going to be some more surprises, which we will unveil as well. So this one's going to be cool. If you like Dark Tower and you're excited about it, you're really going to love this one too. It's going to be great. So that will be coming out to crowdfunding later this year. Bob and I actually did a live stream at GaryCon a few weeks ago that occurred on their live stream channel. The last I heard, we are going to be getting a recording of that, and we will be posting that up on I believe on our YouTube channel. So I'm not sure that made it yet, but if you keep your eye out, I'm sure when we do get that up, we'll have an announcement for that, so you can watch out. Basically, I interview Bob on the way that he kind of approached the conversion and everything. So it was pretty awesome. So with that is all the new news that I have right now. So we are going to take a very brief pause, and we're going to bring on our special guest. So I'll be back in a second. All right, we are back, and with me, my very special guest to my virtual whatever way, I'm not sure which way it is Tim Wadzinski, 5th edition editor extraordinaire. And hasn't been on, I don't know if you've been on this show before, but you've been on other shows with me. So Tim, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks. Hey, everybody. No, I have not been on this one, but yeah, we've done a few things in the past.
Awesome. On right. Okay. Oh, my left. Okay, got it. Thanks, history professor. Always making sure I'm getting things right. Awesome. So Tim is no stranger to the 5e side of the house in doing things. Tim, when first I tell everybody when you started actually playing tabletop role-playing games.
It was 6th grade. I remember very distinctly. 2 of my buddies were playing, and I walked over, and because I had no idea what D&D was at the time, and they were playing. There's a weird hybrid of Mold Bay basic set and AD&D. And so my friend Brian was my first dungeon master. He's like, "Here, let's roll up a character," and I had no clue, and rolling dice, filling stuff out. And the one thing I really remember was, I've told the story a million times, but I asked him, like, what is alignment? What does that mean? And he said, just put C. It's the best. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my first character was Chaotic Evil, and I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, so that was 1981. So it's been a little while.
That's right. That's the same year I started. So wow, that's cool. Awesome. So I assume, did you eventually play other role-playing games besides just D&D, or were you just a D&D guy?
No, I was. I have an addictive personality, like I think a lot of gamers do, a collector mentality. So once I knew what D&D and TSR were, and there was a box set, and I had to get the other box set games. So I ended up playing quite a few of those, Top Secret, Gamma World,
Nice.
Star Frontiers, quite a lot of Star Frontiers actually, Conan. So all through the 80s, it was all TSR, mostly D&D, But then eventually, once we got into college, then it was AD&D, and I was the DM for our group, and I don't remember why exactly, but we sort of got burnt on AD&D or something, and we switched over to Rifts, and I
Wow.
ran that for a while, and we liked that because it was just so crazy. I mean, anything at all you want, you can put into a Rifts game. So that was a lot of fun. It was challenging to run because it was so crazy, but it was fun.
Cool. Okay. So when did you start professionally working in the role-playing industry, and how?
But I still don't remember the exact date. It's probably about 10 years by now because I started, my wife and I actually started as a proofreading team for the DCC RPG core rulebook. One of the play testers for that, and found out that Joseph was looking for proofreaders. My wife has a technical writing background, and I had a web-based, email-based music e-zine for like 20 years that I was the editor of. So I just kind of had an eye for that sort of thing. And after proofreading in a few modules, I think, after the core book, that's when Joseph asked me if I'd like to work for him because he liked my attention to detail and the way I ran through things. And so shortly thereafter was when the 5e, the 5th edition fantasy line came out. So that's when I kind of jumped ship away from DCC over to 5th edition fantasy. And then eventually when the original Adventures Reincarnated series came out, I was very happy to get involved with the first 6 of those. So
Yeah.
It's been about 10 years.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So yeah, and we're not letting you back to the DCC side. So I'm just letting you know you're not allowed to go there. So you got to stay on this side of the house. So they can't have you ever. So even though that was blasphemous. All right. So just for fun, just so our viewers can get to know you a little bit, I have an eclectic list of questions to ask you. So so I'm just gonna jump right in. So what is your favorite food?
Oh, my grandma used to make a homemade lasagna. And it's so good. It's converted people who don't even like pasta. I remember bringing some back to my college roommate. I had some leftovers, and he was hungry. I'm like, "Here, try it." He's like, "No, man, I don't like lasagna. I don't like pasta." I'm like, "Just try it." And we got nothing else to eat it, and he ate it, and his mind was just blown. And I think the
Nice.
sad thing is she's no longer with us, and the recipe was never written down, so it will never
Oh,
be recreated again.
so that's a sad ending to a great story. So okay. All right, so let's we need to get something a little more upbeat here. Well, maybe this is upbeat, I don't know. Star Wars or Star Trek? I think you know where I land on the spectrum on this one. So
Oh yeah, no, definitely Star Wars for me. I have
oh,
nothing against Star Trek, but I was 6 when the first Star Wars movie came out. My parents came to see it at the show, and so it's been with me my whole life. Basically, there's always been new stuff. I kept up with the books when the movie stopped coming out in the early '90s. Played a little bit of the role playing game back then, so definitely Star Wars.
cool, awesome. And you'll like this. I don't know if you've been watching The Mandalorian or not. I mean, because so the episode that just dropped yesterday, folks, really cool homage. I don't think it was intentional, but really cool homage to the Desert of Desolation series. And I'll just leave it at that because it was
Yeah.
really, really freaking cool that I like pointed to the screen and I was like, I've seen that before in a really awesome D&D module. So, and
Yeah.
there's so many, we're going to talk about it later on. There's so many folks that work in Hollywood that have a very strong D&D background. I would not be surprised if somebody who came up with the idea for this thing if they were inspired by that originally. So don't know if you've seen it or not yet, Tim. If you know what I talk about, so
I did. No, I watched it today and I and thought the exact same thing. So that was really cool to see that on the screen like
it
that.
was
Has to be fun.
awesome. It was so
Those are my
cool.
favorite module. Those are my favorite modules. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, all over it. So okay, so we digressed. We could just this could just be a Star Wars show if we wanted, but apparently my boss wouldn't like me to do that. So now I'll ask you what your three favorite movies are. And I know this is hard to kind of boil it down to three favorite movies. So think about like movies that like anytime they're on like network TV and you're like channel surfing and you're like, oh, I gotta stop and I gotta watch the rest of this or something like that. Or we can break it down in favorite comedy, favorite drama, favorite whatever you want to do it. So three movies.
Well, I'm going to stay away from sci-fi and fantasy because it's just an impossible task. So
Agreed.
the we first had cable. We first had HBO back in the early 80s. And I remember being riveted by First Blood, the Sylvester Stallone movie. That is still, it's awesome. And just the outdoor scenes, where he's running through the woods and hiding and all that, it really dovetailed with my love of Rangers in D&D. So it just, that's a classic movie. I'll argue with anybody all day long. That's a perfect film. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
And then, with my music background, I'm a big heavy metal guy. I like comedy, so this is Spinal Tap. I know that gets mentioned a lot by a lot of people, but seeing that at the theater with my buddies who were also into music at the time back then was just, it's endlessly quotable. All the sequels and offshoots and things, but the original will never be touched. That's just, it's too funny. And then actually like Midnight Run, the comedy with
Yes.
Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. The interplay between those guys is fantastic. And
yeah,
it's so much quotable stuff in there, like the litmus configuration test when they're stealing money from the bar owner. And it's just, De Niro is hilarious. Charles Grodin's a perfect straight man. It's great.
That's awesome. That's great. Great. Excellent choices there. That was really good. So, favorite vacation spot?
Well, I mean, my wife and I honeymoon in Hawaii. That's tough to beat. But now that, we have a family, I will say the unusual spot of South Dakota. We took a road trip out there when my daughter was younger. And I was surprised at how many fun things there were to do out there. The Black Hills is an amazing state park. There's caves, the cathedral spires, rock formations are just cool. There's so much awesome hiking to do. The Badlands is neat to see. I think one time we actually came across some prairie dogs that were popping out of the ground. We were feeding them. We were hand feeding prairie dogs, which is just one of those, like, I'll never forget seeing the look on my daughter's face as she was feeding the prairie dog. And Mount Rushmore, that's something to see at night. And then we saw the Crazy Horse Monument the next day. It's two sides of the coin there, because Mount Rushmore is about one of the most patriotic things you could feel when you're there watching that. And then you go to the Crazy Horse Monument the next day and you learn a little more about what happened out there. And it's quite a juxtaposition, let's say. But it was learned a lot and had a lot of fun. It was a way better trip than I thought it was going to be.
That's fascinating. I agree with you almost 100% on Hawaii, and I would not have thought South Dakota. So that's great. That's a cool one. So, I can't wait for this next question. My favorite question: what is your favorite Muppet?
I don't know his name, but the Mad Bomber guy that has the TNT plunger, pops up every now and then, blows stuff up, and then he has that awesome laugh, and he's got those huge bags under his eyes and the stringy hair. He's just so demented. I love that guy.
Okay, the Mad Bomber. Wow, awesome. So I would not have picked that one for you. I just kind of thought you were more of a Fozzie Bear kind of a guy, but so
no.
That's cool. So, all right, last question, and this is the deepest question of all of them. So if you could have dinner or an extended conversation, at a Gen Con bar or something like that, with any one person, alive or not alive anymore, who would it be and why?
One of my grandfathers. He passed away when I was in college, and he was a huge part of my childhood and raising me. He introduced me to sports, taught me how to play baseball. He introduced me to gaming. I've been playing cards my whole life. He was in World War II. He was in the Merchant Marine, and I know there's family stories that one of the ships he was on was torpedoed and sank, and he actually was shot a couple times in a crossfire. And there were like these war stories that I never really heard directly from him that I would love to be able to get the firsthand accounts of. And just honestly, I don't feel like I ever really had like a serious adult conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was gone too soon. So I would really love to be able to do that and just learn a little more about his upbringing. His father was actually in World War I in the French Canadian Army. He actually fired a machine gun from a sidecar of a motorcycle. I have
Wow.
a picture of that. And so I would love to hear those stories.
Wow.
Again, you hear things through the family and you never know how exaggerated they are. I would really like to hear them from the source just to get that locked down.
Cool. Oh, wow. Interesting. Great answer. Great answer. So, all right. So the main reason we've had our fun, the main reason we brought Tim along tonight is we want to talk about two pretty big topics. The first is, as I've seen on my shirt, is Quasquiton. Quasquiton? Did I get that right? Quasquiton? I think that's how we decided we were going to say it. So you have a very interesting, so for folks who don't know what Quasqueton is, back in dungeon module B1, the name of the dungeon, this is the infamous dungeon that was never filled in with encounters. It was just the map and the room descriptions and the little line for a monster treasure. This was the name of the dungeon was Quasqueton. I think it's only labeled, I think, one time or mentioned one time. It might be mentioned like a second time or something, but anyway, it wasn't something that, you knew it was like the Caves of Chaos and stuff like that. It was pretty obvious, everything. But there was a great story of how the name was developed, and I'll let you actually tell the story. So the original author was Mike Carr, and then we got to actually do, or number one was Into the Borderlands, and one of the adventures of that was In Search of the Unknown, and that was the adventure that was in. So why don't you give them the Mike Carr story?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's an unusual word, right? So it just kind of sticks in your head. But then it was after we had done Or One, and he has an interview in there, and he talks about the module. But I don't know, I was just Googling around or something, but I found a story where a gentleman on EN World had interviewed Mike Carr, and they asked him about the origins of it. And he said back in the 60s, he was living up in Minnesota and he took a job down in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So he was driving and he saw a road sign for a town in Iowa named Quasqueton. And it apparently just stuck with him. He thought it was an interesting word and he just filed it away in his memory banks. And then years later, decade later, whatever it was, when he was writing module B1, he just brought that word back. He thought it was cool. So he named his dungeon Quasqueton. So when I found out it was a real place, I was like, oh, okay, because I live in the Chicago suburbs. Iowa isn't that far. So I looked and I saw where it was, and I thought, well, maybe not, a little too far for a day trip. But I filed it away in the back of my head. And now a few months ago, we were looking at colleges for my daughter, and one of them was in Iowa. And I thought, oh, Iowa. So that memory came back, and I looked and I saw that Quasqueton is about 30 or 40 miles away from where we were going to be. So I told my wife and daughter, hey, as soon as this college visit's done, we're going to go check this out, because I got to get a picture of myself next to the Quasqueton sign since it's a real place. And so, yeah, we drove up there through the snow, and sure enough, and the first time I saw the road sign, it said Quasqueton. I was like,
yep, we got the road sign up right now with you with your Or book in one hand and your B1 in the other hand, in the snow. It's on the side of the road, and people driving by. Not that it looks like there's many people driving by, but if they were, they're probably, what is this guy doing out there? And they probably put you on some kind of list or something. So
there actually was one car that drove by.
Okay. Oh, awesome. So great. So after that sign, so then you got into the city proper, and I think we have a picture for that too. So yeah, Jib Cutter, he does. So the other thing that Jib Cutter is asking, you travel with your OR1 and your B1 modules. Well, not always, but when there's thing. The other cool story that Tim always tells us, when you went to the Canadian border, right? When you went to the border of Canada, you brought your OR book there too, didn't you? And took a picture of
Yeah,
that.
my dad has a cabin in northern Minnesota, and it's not too far from the Canadian border. So yeah, we found the customs at the customs office at the border. So I took my Borderlands book to the actual Borderlands and got a picture of it.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. So yeah, we do crazy things. So if you can pop up, Elena, the next picture, the city sign of Quasquiton. So of course there was more photo ops for Tim to jump out of his vehicle. And it's cool. They call the city Quasky, which is really, really neat. I think Quasky needs to be an NPC name, by the way. Because I think that would be really cool. And also, by the way, just throwing that out there, I've done this same thing too in traveling. I've driven past or through a place or something, and I've jotted the name down on a napkin or something, and then like threw it in my backpack or whatever, and then used it in an adventure. It's such a great inspiration and everything. So, love that. So, all right, tell us about the Quasky Museum.
So yeah, so then we went into town a little bit, and it's a small town. And then we saw there was a historical society and museum, and we were like, oh, but then it was closed. So I thought, well, that's a bummer. But then there was like a convenience store right next door, and so I went in there, and I wanted to talk to. I see there's a question in the chat. This is exactly what I'm going to say.
Yep.
I want to know how to pronounce the word. So we went in, and the nice lady who worked there, and I told her, I said, this is really weird, but we traveled and blah blah blah, and I said, how do you pronounce the name of your town? And she laughed and she said, no, that's fine. It's Quasquiton.
Oh.
I said, okay. I said, okay, thanks. And then she said, but some people say it differently, but it's Quasquiton. I said, okay. And then, I had inquired about the museum next door, and she said, oh, just call them. They'll come down and open it for you. And I'm like, it's a Saturday, I'm not going to bother anybody. She's like, no, she's real nice. Just call. I'm like, okay. So we called this lady, and within 5 minutes, she drove from her home to the museum and opened it up for us. And so we went in and looked around, but during that conversation, I asked her, how do you pronounce this? And she said, well, there's a difference of opinion, but the right way is Quasqueton. So I talked to two people. I got two different pronunciations. So it's either Quasquiton or Quasqueton. That's why perfect. She says everybody says Quasky, because nobody can agree on how to pronounce the word the right way.
And that's awesome. That is so small town America. I love that. That's really cool. So someone in the chat asked if there was a Kawasaki dealer in the town, because if there was a Kawasaki dealer in Quasquiton, that would be just crazy. So I'm gonna say no, there probably wasn't, right?
Well, if there was, I didn't see it.
Okay, all right, got it. So all right, so you went into the museum, obviously, and tell us about how cool this museum is. And we got a picture of it, so like what it was repurposed originally as.
Yeah, there's two buildings. The main building is an old bank, red brick. It's just a cool looking, very stately looking building. And then there's, I think, 2 floors and a basement just packed full of stuff, historical photos and items, clothing. There's several mannequins with vintage clothing from decades ago. But the picture that I took in there, which I thought was cool, was since it was a bank, there was an old bank vault in there. So I had to get since I was in Quasquiton, which is the dungeon that I've played a million times, I had to get a picture of the treasure vault inside Quasquiton. Yes. So that's what that picture was. And awesome. I did actually briefly step in there. So not only did I get a picture of the vault, but I actually was inside the treasure vault inside Quasquiton.
Awesome. That is so cool. And the history professor shared population according to Wiki 570, that's a small town. That is a small town. So, okay. So we have one more picture on this, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but when we get into our next topic. But yeah, if you can pull up the last picture, number 5, the souvenirs, one of which I'm wearing, and if it's really cool because it's got some cool stuff on the back. So there you go. So you got yourself, you got some Quasky swag right there while you were in the place. And was that at the convenience store or was that at the museum?
No, that was at the museum. Like I said, I had to get treasures from Quasquiton, and I'm using my koozie right now. It's nice. Not drinking beer here, but It's yeah, no, it's good stuff. And that medallion is actually like a Christmas ornament, but it looks like a medallion or an amulet. So I can say I got an amulet from Quasqueton, right? That's very gamerish.
Very cool. Jim Cutter, we're gonna get to your question in a second. Jim Cutter asked us we should donate a copy of B1 to the museum. Wonder if the people even knew about B1 and its dungeon. Laugh out loud. We're gonna get to that in a second. We're teasing that right now. So yeah. Oh my god, they should hold a con there. Quasquiton Con. Yeah, oh my god, that would be really cool. We could like play at the museum, play in the vault. Oh my god, we can make money off of this. This is what we're gonna do when we're gonna retire. This is what we're gonna do. No one's gonna come, but and we're not gonna get many locals. So all right, so now we're gonna transfer and we're gonna talk a little bit about GaryCon, but we're still gonna talk about Quasquiton a little bit. Earlier, Elena threw a picture up there showing a picture of Mike Carr, who was at GaryCon. We took a selfie with Tim, so we've got that as well. So if you want to put that one back up again, that's the one. I know I'm going out of order here and I'm confusing you, Elena. So, but she's got it. She's on it. So I told you, yep, there we go. So, and you'll notice, take a good look at what's behind them, and that's if you guys are familiar with the dungeon, you'll see. So somebody, and again, Tim, you might know the story better than I do, but somebody has basically created a 3D dungeon of the Quasquiton dungeon, both levels, and it's there on display. I believe they use it and they play through it, I think, at the convention. And I don't know if you know more about it than I do, but you can see it in the back there in that picture.
The only thing I know is it was in the Legends of the Legendary Room. I forget the full name of the room, but I believe I heard there were 2 models the gentleman made. And I don't know that they actually play on it, but I know when you and I looked at it up close, it sure looked like it was made with 1-inch squares in mind. So
it did, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was totally playable. And actually, Elaine, if you can pull up the picture of Tim and I in front of the model, we were oogling over it in the back corner of the room, and some guy was there like looking at it and talking to us, and he didn't know who we were, that we'd worked on ore number 1. And we were like, oh hey, can you take a picture of us? So we took a real quick picture. So you can definitely see it. It's fantastic. I mean, I would love to play using that thing, even though I know the dungeon and I kind of know the encounters. Well, I don't know the encounters because it's different for everybody, but I do know the where some of the secret doors are and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really, really, really cool. And we got a couple of other pictures. We've got if you want to, you can just kind of scroll through pictures 3, 4, and 5. And that's a close-up of the pools room, just the map in general, which we got shown there now, and then the fungi room, which everybody knows about, the fungus room. Yep, there's the room of pools. 23, I thought different. I forget how many pools are in there. And there's the fungus room, which is amazing. So that's going right from the cover and everything. So earlier on, we talked a little bit, we're going to jump ahead again, I think. But yeah, so let's well, we'll get to it. We'll tease a little bit. We're going to go back to Quasqueton a little bit. Let's show off a couple of really, really kind of fun pictures. So if you want to pull up picture number 1, the snow in Lake Geneva. So, and it's ironic that I show a picture of a beautiful snowscape in Lake Geneva, because it is like 90 degrees here in New Jersey tonight. And just a couple of weeks ago, yep, there was like 8 inches of snow dumped on us like Friday night to Saturday morning at the convention. But to be honest with you, when you're at a game convention, you kind of want it to be nasty and snowy outside, because you don't want to be like, boy, I wish we go outside because it's gorgeous out there. So that was kind of cool. And then the next picture I want to show you off is I got to show you the Goodman Games booth. So if you can pull up number 2, the Goodman Games booth. There we go in all of our glory. That was taken on Thursday afternoon before we sold out of almost everything, because we were out of core books, I think, by Friday, and we were out of dice on Saturday, and we were out of all of our old Judges Guild modules and everything. So yeah, so that was when the booth actually looked really cool and everything. So so that's where I lived most of GaryCon when I was there. So so now we got a couple of fun pictures we're going to pull up here. So they have this awesome cutout of Gary Gygax as a wizard. So of course we couldn't resist. We had to get our mugs in there. So if you want to pull up, yep, there's me as the wizard himself. We had to share that, and of course, if I got my picture taken with it, we had to show the picture with Tim in there too. So there we go with Tim as the man as well. Okay, so now Well, actually, all right. I'm just like bringing this on like as long as I can because did I miss something? Oh, did I miss it? Hey, oh, so we need to show. Oh no, there it is. Wait, no, I'm looking. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my show list and I'm getting it all wrong. Okay, no, it's near the end. Okay, we're gonna do this at the end. Okay, got it. So stay tuned, Jib Cutter. I hope you're still with us. We're gonna get to that part, but I'm really gonna like make you wait. So, all right. So next, so there's a huge charity auction at GaryCon every year. Folks who know Jim Kitchen, huge friend of the show and friend of Goodman Games. Um, he is the MC of the auction. And, I didn't see an actual amount of money that they raised, but they raised a stupid amount of money because I love to buy stuff at the auction and everything was out of my price range, basically. I mean, basically, if you basically almost everything started at like $400 for like a piece of paper or something. So yeah, it was which is great, but it's awesome. It's for a great cause. But was really cool. And we get the next picture. You can pop that up there. I think most of the people will know the actor in this shot here. This is actor Joe, I think it's Manganiello, I believe his name is. Folks are probably well aware of him. So he is holding in his hand, if you can stay on that picture for a little while, he's holding in his hand what they call the Sandal of Gygax. So this is allegedly the last, for those folks who know, but Gary was actually a cobbler. And he was kind of a cobbler to make some money while he was actually doing game design and everything. That is allegedly one of the last sandals that he worked on before he didn't need to do cobbling anymore, and he went full into game design and everything. And each year they auction this off at the charity auction, and you don't get to keep it. You get to actually, yes, for local monks. Thank you, history professor, for says that it was for a local group of monks. Actually, he did all the sandals for them. So they auction off, but you basically get it for 1 year, and you have to embellish it somehow during that year. And then basically, then you have to bring it back to GaryCon so that they can auction it off again. Well, that sandal went for, again, rental for 1 year, $5,500 to actor Joe Manganiello. And what's really cool is, and folks might be aware of this, but Joe is working on a D&D documentary that will be, I think, released sometime next year for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. And he is traveling all over the world, interviewing people and doing this documentary. And he apparently is going to bring the sandal with him. And the sandal will get pictures of with other famous people and all over the place and everything. So really cool. It was a great story. And it was just a really excellent feel-good moment and everything. So wanted to definitely share that. So there's a fun picture kind of coming up next. So this is Tim and myself and Alex Kowalski, excuse me. The heat's getting to me in my room. I'm like in my upstairs office and it's like 95 up here. So we all went to, Tim kept saying, he's like, we got to go eat at this place called Doyle's Pub. And it was in Illinois. We actually had to jump over. We went over a borderland, actually. We went over a border to go to this place. It was probably 20 minutes from Lake Geneva. So we went there, I think it was Thursday night or Friday night, I think it was. And it was a great little Irish pub. And there's Alex there, and myself in the back, and there's Tim. And we had a great time. As you know, Alex has been doing, obviously he's from 20 Sides Every Story, but he's also been on the 5e team doing design, and some of his adventures and monsters are going to be coming out very, very soon. So that's really cool. And next we're going to get to a bunch of Tim's pictures. So I'll probably ask for some filling in on the blanks in some of these, but and most of these are just kind of fun. So we're going to show picture number 01. This is Tim and Mando, because of course, you see the Mandalorian walking around cosplaying, you got to get a picture with him. So did you did you have to say this is the way or anything, or did you just like take the picture? Was it all cool?
Well, I didn't have to, but I felt compelled. But yeah, he was like a medieval Mandalorian. He was near Chris Arneson's booth,
Nice.
one of our favorite illustrators. And besides, he was a very nice guy. And I saw him a few times, and I'm like, I got to get a picture. That's awesome.
That's really cool. So if we want to put up the picture number 10 again with Tim and Mike Carr. So we talked about Mike Carr being the author of B1. So this is Tim getting a selfie with Mike Carr. So Mike Carr still runs Dawn Patrol at GaryCon, right? Isn't that what his big thing is these days?
Yeah, that was the first table. When you walk in the room, there was a huge table set up with his game, and I felt like it was going the whole weekend. And then they would take 20 minutes to do a turn, and he would leave and come back. And but yeah, he's a super nice guy. He was thrilled to hear. I told him the whole story about my visit to the town, and he said that he's been meaning to go. He had never actually went there. He just saw the sign, is what he told me. He's never actually been in this. It is a city. It's called a city, even though it's population 570. But he said that my story now pushed him over the edge, that he's definitely going to go visit now.
Awesome. That's so cool. So, all right, we're going to get back to that. I promise everybody we're going to get back to it. We had a couple more really cool pictures. This one's really cool. Picture number 8. There has to be a backstory on this. Let us have it there. I'm sure folks are going to recognize the person with Tim there. So what's the backstory? Did you just literally mug him in the hallway and ask for a picture, or what?
Pretty much, yeah. Vince Vaughn, the actor, he was there with Tom Morello, the guitar player from Rage Against the Machine. They're all friends, I think, with Joe Manganiello and Luke Gygax. But it was just cool because these guys were just walking around, and I heard through the grapevine they weren't like, special guests or treated anything. I mean, they bought their own badges and signed up for events and everything. And yeah, Vince was just walking around taking pictures, and I did catch him as he was running. He was late for an event, so it's not like I had a chat with him or anything. But no, he was friendly. He's a nice guy.
Cool.
But it's cool. Like they all play D&D, and they played for decades too. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Very cool. And if we could pop up number 9. Oh, wait, actually number 7. I'm sorry, 7. Oh, it doesn't matter, 7 or 9. We'll figure it out. 7 it is, I'm told. So this is Jeff Grubb, author of Curse of the Azure Bonds, an amazing book. Actually, the trilogy was just really, really good. Underrated, I thought. Those books I thought were riveting. But then again, I was younger when I read them. So I'm not sure how they hold up these days, but yeah. So what did you just, did you mug him too in the hallway, or what was the deal with that?
He was talking to, I think it was Tom Wong, and I recognized, I waited, it was respectful and everything. But then, when he was done, I just introduced myself and said hi. And he was like the nicest guy. I mean, he was in no hurry, and I think he was between things, and he was just ready to just sit there and BS for a while. So I was like, if I get a picture, I love your stuff. You got a gazillion design credits and written so many cool things for TSR. And yeah, he was just super friendly. That's the coolest thing about GaryCon. You around the corner, you're gonna bump into one of your idols, and they're down to talk with you for 5 or 10 minutes. It's the coolest.
Nice. All right, if we could pop up number 9 now. So this is Tim with Mike Merles. And I love the irony of this picture, because if you notice what books he's holding there. So Mike Merles was kind of the head designer of 5e and was the head guy at WotC for a while with D&D. From what I understand, he's in a different department now, but he still comes to GaryCon and he still sways. But yeah, it's like almost. I mean, you might be able to blackmail somebody with that picture there, with him holding those old school Essentials books. I don't know, I'm just saying that. So, but you probably mugged him in the hallway too, huh? Was he running off to a game? He was probably late for his old school Essentials game. So
yeah, that was literally 2 ships passing in the night kind of thing. And he won't remember me, but I've met him before and talked to him at previous cons and helped him unload some pallets and stuff. And I was just like, hey, and he's like, okay. So yeah, it was just one of those quick selfie moments.
All right.
Also very nice guy, super friendly.
Cool. All right, so we're getting to the end of the show. So we tease this. Now we're going back to Quasqueton now. So do you want to set this up? I believe you said it was the museum curator who reached out to you, correct?
Yeah, I did explain to her the whole reason why we were there and the whole history of the Dungeons and Dragons thing, and I showed her my module, and I showed her our original Adventures Reincarnated book, and I showed her where Quasqueton was named in it. And it's funny because she said, "Oh, my son, he does something with games." And I didn't really think too much of it. We were leaving. My family was leaving, and then she came running out. And she's like, "Wait a minute. If you don't mind, let me take a picture of your books. I want to send them to my son. I think he would think this is really cool." I said, "Okay." So she took pictures of the B1 module and the OR book, and then later I found out that this woman who was super nice, her son was the author of the EN World article that I had read, which pointed me to the story of my car and the origin of the word Quasqueton. So there's a weird little, circle there. The circle is now complete, right? So I reached out to him and we chatted a little bit. But then in the meantime, his mother, the curator of the museum reached out to me, and she said that she wanted to buy a copy of Or One to put on display in the museum. And so that's when, Chris, you remember I reached out to you and Joseph, and I told this whole story, and then we decided to not buy one, we're going to donate one. And then with GaryCon coming up soon, I thought, well, I'm sorry, she asked for Chris's signature and my signature in the book to be put on display in the museum, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
So that's when I went to Joseph and Chris, told them the story, and then I thought, you know what, we're gonna, rather than mail this thing around, Chris, we're gonna see each other at GaryCon. Why don't I just bring the book to GaryCon and we'll sign it? And then we had the idea to track down some other folks while we were there who contributed either to the original modules or to the Goodman version. And so I ended up getting, I think, 7.
So here we go.
signatures.
So we've got pictures. So if you can show picture number 11, we have a picture of the great Diesel signing Or number 1. And as you can see there, there's already a bunch of signatures on there from us. And did he work on the original maps? Was he one of the original cartographers?
Yeah, he was, and also there's a lot of illustrations in Keep on the Borderlands that he did. Which he was telling me stories. He was bringing them up and telling me the background behind them. I don't recall off the top of my head if he did illustrations for In Search of the Unknown.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't stop there. We got more signatures. So if you want to pop up number 12. Now he didn't work on this book specifically, but he's related to somebody who did. So we got Luke Gygax to actually sign the book, and you see at this point, there's quite a few signatures in that book at this point. So that was awesome. That was amazing that you tracked down Luke. I mean, Luke he runs GaryCon. He's very busy, but did you tell him the story that it was going in a museum and everything?
Yeah, I said, this is a museum. I kept saying, this is a museum piece. This belongs in a museum. But and he did write an article for Or One. So even though he didn't contribute to the original modules, he does have a 1 or 2 page article in the book itself. But yeah, he thought it was awesome that it was going to be on display like that.
Very, very cool. And the next one, if you want to pop up number 13. And folks will probably recognize this guy, even though it's just the back of his head. That is the great Errol Otis signing the book and everything. Did you by any chance take a picture of the signature page, Tim? Or no?
I do. I still have the book here in my possession. I am going to take a photo of it, and then I'm going to, list for the the museum who each signature is.
Cool.
And maybe 1 or 2 sentences explaining who they are, so when the book's on display, we'll know what it is.
Yeah. So
but there were a few others. I got Brendan LaSalle from Goodman and Jim Wampler because they contributed to it.
Nice.
I can't remember, but there were like 8 or 9 people, I think, that I got to sign it.
Yeah, so that's so cool. So yes, folks, there's a Goodman Games book in a museum, and how freaking cool is that? That people that go to the museum are going to see it, and it's just really awesome. So very, very cool. So thank you for all of your efforts with that, Tim. And by the way, I don't know if they're not on sale yet, but Quasqueton t-shirts might be on sale at the website, our website, at some point. They are. So if you need yourself a Quasqueton t-shirt, go to the Goodman Games website and scarf it up. I don't think we have beer cozies though. I think we just have t-shirts. So I know I'll be wearing mine at Gen Con, so it's awesome, and nobody will get it. Well, some people will get it. So if you wear it at GaryCon, more people will get it, I think. So and thank you for the shirt, Tim. I really appreciate it. So that was awesome. And again, thanks for everything. And we have one last picture to show. And because while Tim was there, Tim actually did get to play games. Sadly, I didn't get to play games while I was at GaryCon, but he did get to play a game. And we do have one picture of him having just an amazing time at a game. If you want to tell us what game this is picture number 14. What game is that? I don't even know what that is.
It was a homebrew thing. That was an aircraft carrier, but it was actually an airship. And it was using a 5e rule set, and it was teams. So we were the ninjas, and the other team was the sky pirates. So we had to infiltrate their airship and blow it up. And as you can tell by my buddy Andy and his son and our faces, we were not rolling very well. So GaryCon is not all fun and games, and we were just listening to the other team roll all their crits and max damage and having their way with us, and
awesome.
Still fun.
That is very, very cool. So great. Well, Tim, thank you for joining us today. And doing the trip down memory lane at Quasqueton and also talking about GaryCon. I thought that was really cool to kind of talk about that since it was kind of fresh on our minds and everything. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, Chris. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. All right. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Coming Down the Pike. We'll be back in 2 months. So let's see, babe. So June, probably the end of June, middle end of June, we'll have another one. And we'll probably have a lot of really exciting stuff to talk about in that episode as we get closer and closer to some of these new releases that we're working on. So with that, I will, as always, thank Elena for doing a great job. And we really put her through the paces tonight with all the pictures. She did a great job. Thank you as always behind the curtain. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll be seeing you guys around at our next episode of Talking TSR. Take care, everybody.